My name is Ken Watchell, and I've been a lifetime beekeeper. I go back, just a quick recap here, I go back 75 years with bees. My dad was a beekeeper. I'm the sixth generation from Poland. 6 generations back to the 1840s, we tracked it, and my great-great-great-grandfather was the key beekeeper in the village and producer of the sweet product, because there was no sugar cane back in Europe in those days. It was tough to get sugar cane. So honey was the sweetener most people used, but many also knew even back then it was good for health, as opposed to cane sugar process. So most people started turning to honey, and it became, throughout Eastern Europe in particular, sugar cane was tough to get, so they used honey. And they became the village beekeepers. My father came in 1947 after World War II, and he started with 10 hives here. He was a beekeeper over there with his grandfather and father, and then he started here in 1947, and then I was born 2 years later, and obviously as a young boy he was thrilled because he knew he wanted a 7th generation beekeeper in the family, and I was the boy there, and he took me to the first meeting of the bee club and held me up there, and this is my mother's side of the story. He held me up. Back in those days, women or ladies didn't do beekeeping. It was all male, occasionally a woman now and then. So he came and got me in a diaper only. It's a hot day in June, and he held me up with the guys out there in the beehive. My mother says, all the bees flying around. Walter, he's going to get stung. Helen, go sit down and do your knitting. He says, it only hurts a little bit. And that was my introduction to the beekeepers. And at 5 years old, I had my first beehive. Got started with my first beehive. He let me have the honey and sell it to Mr. Gilbo's grocery store, local little grocery store, and I'd make my spending money. I was a thrill to get, but back then it was 50 cents a jar. So the jars, but back then 50 cents would buy you 10 candy bars. Yeah. So it was kind of thrilling. And then at the age of 15, I went up to 25 hives of my own. My dad had 75. So we had 100 hives between the two of us. And I continued. I went to high school. I did all my projects on honeybees. I won the science fair my senior year with a project, and went on to some international competition, scientific fair competition, I remember. And then in college, in the entomology course, I did my paper on honeybees. Everything was honeybees. I loved honeybees, and to get into the beehive was nothing like it. And then I got drafted by the military, went away, and there I had to stay away. I missed my honeybees, but I came back. I was schooled, I became a teacher, and started at Northbridge High School 2 days after I came back from the military, and then went on to increase my hives from 25 to 50 to 100 to 150, because as a teacher you taught during the school year and you had your summer off. So it was good, and I used to do projects and bring them in and let the kids see the observation hives, and they were excited about it. Then the tasting of honey was even better. They could taste honey, and so they were excited about it. And Mr. Watchell, can you bring in your hive again and your honey to taste? I said, yeah, we'll do it again. So they got all excited about it. I realized that honeybees have a miraculous effect on people. They have this, you just seem to draw to them. I get into a hive, and most beekeepers will tell you the same thing. You're so drawn into what they're doing. They're a little mysterious little world, but they work together so well. I often said, why can't the human race be like them instead of fighting wars or killing? Why don't cooperate and work together and have a loving family and a loving society? So anyway, I got into it, been teaching for 39 years, keeping bees, summers inspecting for 45 years, and I retired from both teaching and then inspecting after 45 years, but I was grabbed by Harvard University. That's when bees started being lost in big numbers. By the middle 1990s, bees were dropping in numbers, and they couldn't figure out why. So Dr. Lou at Harvard and the Harvard team of scientists, we're going to do a study on why honeybees are dying. And so obviously they were scientists. They needed a beekeeper that wasn't afraid of honeybees. And I got a call from Dr. Lou at Harvard, and he said, Ken Watchell, we understand you're a pretty dynamic beekeeper. He says, we'd love to have you running 50 hives for Harvard so we could study and find out why the bees are dying. He said, in Cambridge and Arlington. I said, well, Dr. Lou, I'm in Worcester, south of Worcester. If you want me, you've got to have the bees out here, and you come out here to do the studies. And, oh, okay, we'll do that. I still tell the story. How many people can say they can tell Harvard the demands that what they want, rather than adhering to their highs? So they accepted that, and I took on a 6-year study with Harvard as to why the bees are dying. And then just shortly after that, come on in, just got started. Welcome to Beekeeping 1. So what happened is Harvard took me on. Dr. Lou called. I said, I have to check my wife. We were supposed to try, I just retired from teaching. We were supposed to travel, go to Poland to tour with family and tour around Eastern Europe. And so he says, Ken, this is for the bees. They're dying at an alarming rate. We need you. 2 weeks later, Dr. Jeff Pettis from the Beltsford Bee Lab called up. He says, Ken, this is Dr. Jeff Pettis, the chief inspector at the Beltsford Bee Lab. We have Asian longhorn beetle. They're going to have to inject trees with a type of pesticide. We need to do a study for 5 years on the effects on honeybees with this tree injection. He said, we need you to run 40 hives for the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. I said, Jeff, we were supposed to travel with my wife, and Jeff said to me, he says, Ken, this is for your country. I says, right. So I had to go and sit my wife down one evening. I sat her down. I said, Deb, have a seat. You want a cup of tea and honey? She said, what's wrong? I know something's wrong. What's wrong? I says, well, you know how we're going to go to Poland and travel with my brother? I says, I just got a call 2 weeks ago from Harvard, and now 2 weeks later from USDA. They want me to run a total of 90 hives between the two organizations on what's going on with the honeybees. And my wife, knowing how I love my bees, said, no, I know your love for the bees. You go ahead and do that. We'll travel after that. So for 7 years, I was tied up with studies and finished about 6 years ago now. Completed 2 studies, and once you finish a Harvard study, you became known all over. I started getting calls from Missouri beekeepers, the Michigan beekeepers, all the local groups in New England here to speak on why the bees are dying, because this study had me as the second writer on the paper. So I used to walk around as a lowly teacher like this. After the Harvard study, I walk around like this, you know. And but anyway, that's my career overall in beekeeping. And you know, like I say, the National Geographic is going to really make me a national celebrity when next August our documentary on me and the bees. So you can watch for that. But they are dying. The Harvard study, I can tell you. And I had to hold back for the first year or two, not let that out until that study was complete. But the bees dying, there's a number of factors we found. One is this type of little mite that came into the United States, rural mite. It's a nasty little tick, like gets on the bees and sucks the lifeblood out of them. This is 800 times the size of the mite that you'd see on a honeybee. So this is what it would look like on a human if it was in perspective to the size. Then they suck out all the lifeblood out of whether it be a bee or a human. If it were human, it was this side. Okay, it must be one of the other class. So anyway, this is the tick. Secondly, six viruses have all of a sudden come into the United States from all over the world with world transportation like it is. 6 different viruses. We had 3 viruses. Now we have 9 viruses that once in these ticks, once they go from one bee to the next, they're infecting them with the viruses. So the mite, the viruses, and then the third factor we found, the injection of those trees with what we call neonicotinoids. It's a systemic pesticide. It stays in the plant. And so as a result of that, the systemic pesticide stays in the plant, and other insects that get the leaf glutation or go and get the nectar or whatever. And if they plant seed coated with this now, because they don't have to use another pesticide, it's in the system. So as a result, any insect getting from that plant, Nathan, it destroys the nervous system and kills them. So those three factors are the big factors. And then the fourth factor is what it's done to our environment with these big, years ago I could keep 15, 20 beehives in one area. Now you're lucky to keep 5 or 6 because everybody's got that $10,000 lawn like a carpet. Not a dandelion, not a clover, not a chickweed. The bees don't have what they need. They need a great variety of flowers to get all these different vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that they need to survive, just like us. And as a result, they don't have that. They're in a fight. And so what's happened, the bee populations are dying out. We're losing 40 to 50% of the bees per season. We can't keep going at this rate. The scientists are looking at this, seeing what can we do, and trying to react to the situation. So as a result of that, we're hopefully going to find something, because they say by 2050 we will be in big trouble. Keep this in mind, 40% of all the food that we eat is pollinated by the honeybees. So once the honeybee is lost, we have bumblebees, but they're being affected. Not so much the hornets, the wasps, but they don't do much pollination. It's the honeybees, which have 60 to 80,000 bees in one hive. So you put one hive here in the middle of 5 acres of cranberry bogs, and each plant has 10, 15 flowers on it. You need a lot of bees to get to all those cranberry plants. So honeybees do it because such big numbers. Bumblebees only have 100 to a nest. Just, they can't do. I go down the cranberry bogs inspecting beehives during the summers. I'd go down there, thousands of acres of cranberries. Well, the bumblebees couldn't do it, so they have to bring in honeybees from all over the country. But they can't even get enough honeybees. Like on almonds in California, the cranberries, the shortage of honeybees. We're already somewhat in trouble, and if we don't turn the situation around, we're going to lose the bees. And once we lose the bees, there'll be wars over food. Because food, you need it for your population to survive. And if you're not producing the food numbers, then you're in trouble. So as I go into this slide presentation here, I'm going to focus on getting into a beehive. What is it like to get into a beehive and into the micro world of the honeybee? And it's fascinating. I often go out there, I'm stressed. I'll tell you, I'm stressed. I go out there and I'm so focused on the honeybees. You'll see here and then that video, if you watch on YouTube, the one on the documentary, you can see how relaxed I get. You're so focused. And so what happens is the honeybees are very special creatures to me. I can work them, and they call me the bee whisperer. And the name came when the Boston Globe that did an article, big article on me a couple of years back. And he had this big camera, and he came out, Peter Mahegan, from Channel 5 News or something. It was and his brother. And he said, I'm not going to get stung, am I? I said, Dave, I guarantee you won't get stung. Whole day, he's filming in there, right up close with the bees, not one sting. He titled the Boston Globe 3-page article, The Bee Whisperer. I talked to the bees. And so that's how I got that name, and now I'm known as the Bee Whisperer. So let's go on here, and we'll focus on the video. Maybe put the lights down a little bit. Let me see. So is that going to affect your filming? That's good. All right, what you see here, obviously dynamics of the beehive, going into the beehive. And this next photo here, I've been at beekeeping a long, long time. Here you can see me way, way back. I was here at the parting of the seas with Moses. And you can see the bee veil at my feet. After this event was over, I was going to the Nile River to work my beehives along the Nile, picking up nectar from the plants along the Nile. So here I am. It's been a long, long time. But all, there I am at 5 years old, my first beehive, and my dad with his beehive. You can see he let me wear a veil, protect the face, but a short sleeve shirt. He said, no, you're not going to be wearing these suits, because you won't learn to respect the bees. So I got in and learned. And when you go into a beehive, this is what you see. This is what you see. 60 to 80,000 bees with their two little eyes looking up at you and saying, what's going on? Who are you? And as long as you work gently with them, they're going to stay calm. You have to know you nice weather. You can't go on a rainy day. Nice sunny day, temperature above 65. And if you work gently, not squeeze them and kill them, because then they're going to, defense mechanism is a sting. And nobody wants a sting. It hurts. It hurts. But the thing is, they will react to you and they won't hurt you. I got to come behind here every time, I guess. So I'll just stay here. And like I say, one unique thing is, you notice in January, the population of a beehive goes down about 8 to 10,000. And then starting in middle January, the queen starts laying eggs and building up the population slowly. Why slowly? Because it's 30 degrees outside and they have to heat the hive up to 93 in order to have babies hatching. Imagine eating honey, vibrating to create heat, and they can keep it at 93 with 20,000 bees at the end in January, and not even that. And so they build and build. So the middle of June, they reach their 80,000. And you notice what else is peaking in May. The flowers, the berries, the apples, all the fruit is all starting to come out. And so the bees and the flowers for millions of years have worked together. It's a love affair between flower and bee. This beautiful passage, let me just read it quickly, short. Go to your fields and to your gardens, and you shall learn that it is the pleasure of the bees to gather the honey of the flower. But it is also the pleasure of the flower to yield its honey to the bee. For to the bee a flower is a fountain of life, and to the flower a bee is a messenger of love. And to both bee and flower, the giving and receiving of pleasure is a need and an ecstasy. So be it in your pleasures, like the flowers and the bees. But you know what? I've got to rewrite that passage from 1930s, because it's no longer just a love affair with flower and bee. It's a love affair between man, bee, and flower. Because the bees and the flowers for millions of years could work together and survive well. Well, now that dual combination isn't working. The bees are dying worldwide, alarming rates. Dr. Liu, the Harvard scientist who I worked with in northern China, they lost all the bees in northern quadrant up there. They have to hand pollinate, and it takes like 7 hours for one person to do an apple tree. Bees, a hive of bees will do it in 7.5 minutes. Can you imagine the United States at $15 an hour to pollinate? An apple would cost $25. The bees do it quickly, in minutes, and it's done. They're producers of our food. We should be very thankful to the honeybee. And you can see here, they love the large open fields with its goldenrod, milkweed, Joe Pyeweed, Japanese knotweed, all kind of asters. You know, flowers that produce nectar and pollen. Because why do the bees pollinate? The pollen is the high protein food for the bees. The nectar is the carbohydrate that lets them create the heat, gives them the energy to fly. And so as a result, they need that open space where they can get the nectar And not only that, but all the minerals and vitamins that they're getting from the nectar and the pollen is what keeps them healthy and lets them. But if they don't have that, that's why I say one of the factors is they're losing, with all these big, beautiful developments with perfect lawns, they don't have the gathering force. They have the force, but they don't have the flowers to let them get the pollen and the nectar. And here you see a bee right on a flower. They have this little tongue. They suck up the nectar, put it into a honey stomach, and they come back and put it right into the cells in the hive. And then, because most of it is water, they have to evaporate 75 to 80% of that liquid. There's only about 20% that stays behind as the nectar, which makes the honey, and they add this magical enzymes from their hypopharyngeal glands. Scientists still don't know the full implication of what it has for health. But it does have it. I've been taking honey for my whole life. My dad started giving me to at 1 year old, and he started giving me honey and taking pollen, a little bit of pollen 2 times a week. And you know what? I haven't seen a doctor since I was 20 years old. My health has been wonderful. I checked my own, Dr. Viner, a friend who's at UMass. He's a beekeeper as well, and checked my blood pressure. He said, Ken, I can't believe at your age you're running. So I have a lot to say about honey and pollen and the byproducts. And of course, in the hive, you have 3 types of bees. On the left, there's the queen bee. She's the one that lays all the eggs and only lives 2 years. She starting in January and going all the way to November, she lays 1,800 eggs a day, 1,500 to 1,800 eggs a day. Can you imagine a queen laying 1,500, 1,800 eggs a day out of her ovipositor, just one after the other, keeps going. And she's good for 2 years before she runs out of sperm that can fertilize the eggs and make them into worker bees. So the queen does all the job. In the middle is the drone. That's the boy bee. The boy bees is only about 5 to 10% in the hive. 95% are worker bees, the females. The males are there for one purpose, fertilization of the queen. Give her the sperm that she needs to fertilize the egg to make it into a worker bee. And the queen controls that number. She doesn't allow sperm to get on a certain percentage of the eggs to produce only a small number of boy bees, drones, because they don't do any work. I said to my wife, what happened in over the millions of years? Why, I shouldn't be working. I said, females should be doing all the work. She said, right. And of course, the worker bee, the females, 95% are females. Fertilized eggs, produce the worker bees. They do all the work. They feed the young baby bees as nurse bees. They go out and forage. They guard bee. They do the guarding. If like a bumblebee tries attacking or a little mouse tries getting in, they'll sting it and they'll give up their life to protect the hive. So the females do all the work. They collect all the honey, the nectar. But in the fall, they throw out about the end of October, cold, it's wet out there. They throw out all the drones. And I see them in the lawn in the backyard. And I say to my wife, look at the poor guys. They're out there trying to get back in, and the females won't let them. That's the way it should be in the human race. And of course, here's the house bee and the field bee. The field bees go out, first 2 weeks to 3 weeks of bees' life is in the hive. Do all the cleaning, they do the feeding of the baby bees, they guard the hive. And then, after about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, they start testing their wings. They go out in front of the hive and just fly in front of the hive and test their wings. And then they become field bees. After 2 to 3 weeks, they go out and do all the nectar gathering, all the pollen gathering, and all the stuff that they need to survive over the winter months. So that here you can see, that's the field bee on the right, on the left, and the house bee is on right here on the right. And they put their tongues together, and the little house bee sucks the nectar out of the stomach to go deposit it in the cells, and that way the field bee can get right out and start gathering. What a working relationship for them to be able to understand what they need to do to make this house successful. And that's what's so amazing. You see the nurse bees knowing they got to feed the baby bees, otherwise the baby bees are going to die if they're not fed on a regular basis. And so here you see the guard bees. You notice they're at the front, they got their wings flapping to provide the scent. All the bees in that hive, by the way, all smell the same. It's not like with humans, we all smell different. Bees all smell the same. The pheromone the queen releases keeps the same smell. So these guard bees are fanning to get the smell of the hive, so the field bees coming in, especially if you get 5, 6 hives in a row, the field bees know which hive is theirs. And these guard bees, if a bumblebee comes in, a mouse tries to get in, anything that shouldn't be there, they'll sting it and give up their life. You'll have 10, 12 of them stinging, and the mouse will die from the stings. Or the bumblebee, they'll gather up around it, heat it up to a temperature, the bumblebee dies. So they work together as a team to protect it and for the good of the hive. And here, a house cleaning bee cleans out a little dead larva, pulling it out of the hive. They have it spotless, polished, everything's clean, smells so wonderful when you go into a hive, open it up, it smells. And there's the water gathering bee. When they first become gatherers, they go and get water, because the house bees and the baby bees, the nurse bees, they can't get water because they're in the hive and every creature needs water. So what do these water gatherers do? They come in, bring the water in, put it on the frames so that the other bees that are in the hive can get water. Amazing that they know what to do to survive as a group. And here's the scent gland. See, that's the scent gland. They open it up. They all have the same scent, the same smell that comes out. So at the opening, the bees right away, they get close enough to the hives, 15 feet away. Oh, there's my hive. I can smell it. And they go into the hive. Here's the nurse bees. I love to watch the nurse bees because these babies don't cry when they're hungry. You know what? What they do instead, they release a pheromone that says, feed me, feed me, feed me. So I can imagine these nurse bees must be going nuts. Every 4 hours, they got to feed every one of these baby bees until they're capped over. Imagine how mind-boggling that must be to a nurse bee. Feed me, feed me, feed me. But it's the smell that they're releasing, the pheromone. Now here's the drone bee. Big eyes, big husker, just like any race, the male is always the big, bulky, heavier set. So he waits around. If a new queen has hatched, they mate with her. They'll mate with the queen and fertilize her. Obviously a necessity, they need the males. Otherwise they'd have all drones. If they couldn't fertilize the eggs, they'd have all drones, and the drones don't do any work, so the hive collapses. And that's what happens in some beekeepers. They don't realize they lose their queen. If she don't get fertilized because there's no drones in the hive, then all drones are hatching and the hive dies out. It's called the drone land hive. And there's the queen. She travels around. There's her court around her. See it? They groom her, they feed her, take care of everything she needs. She's amazing though. 1,800 eggs a day from January to November. And after 2 years, she has to give it up. They kill her. They form a new queen. They kill her and replace her. But that's for the sake of the bee's survival. They know. No queen, no more sperm. She's laying all unfertile eggs. They kill her off, make a new queen with one of the fertile eggs, and they carry on. So it's survival. And there's the queen looking in to the cell, make sure it's clean enough. If not, she passes over it, and the court has to go in there and clean that cell, polish it up. And here's a famous photo. My buddy who was a teacher also took that, he was out with me with my hives, and I took the queen out just for the heck of it. She had her abdomen in. I pulled it out. There's the egg coming out. By the way, that's the size of a rice grain. I held it up, and then I put it down on there, and he took the picture. It's a couple of bee journals that's been published, and it became, the name had to be added that this is his picture. So that's the queen. The size of a, this is magnified, by the way, these pictures. That's the size of a rice grain. There's the larva. In 3 days it hatches into a larva. See all the eggs? She goes on all day and night just laying eggs. That's all she does. Stops to eat, they feed her, and then she goes, continues on. And there you can see in 3 days it hatches into a little larva. And it grows as they feed her every 4 hours. As they feed all these babies, they're growing bigger and bigger, filling up the cell. And then they cap it over with wax, and it turns into a pupa. And in 21 days, one of the most miraculous things happens. I get to see that so much when I was a bee inspector. This little baby bee is shooting its way out of the cell after 21 days in there, and looking at the light, look at all the bees walking over her. And to take this picture, I shook the bees off so you could see the process. And with new beekeepers, what I do is I'd go as I inspect it, I'd say, uh-oh. And for new beekeepers, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, shh, I don't want to do any brain damage. I take little tweezers, pull away the cappings. And then what happens, look at the two little legs on the left side, pulling its way out. In the middle, halfway out, resting. It's a struggle. It's so tight in there. And then look at on the right, she's almost out. Her hair is all wet because she sweated up, and the poor thing is almost out. But what I do is I uncap it, and with a little tweezers, I pull the bee out, and I say, it's a girl. And they say, how do you know? And of course, you know, I say, what are you thinking about? I said, it's a worker bee. They're all girls. Oh, that's right. But look at this, she cute. That's Sarah, by the way. I named her. I delivered her. I delivered more babies than any obstetrician. Baby bees, that is. And that's the cycle they go through. Then, and 2 weeks after, they work in the hive. They go out and gather nectar and pollen to bring back to the hive for the winter months and for the summer months. Look at the pollen they bring back in the baskets. When they do that, they're pollinating the plants, giving us food. It's not like they're saying, hey, come on, let's go pollinate because man needs food. What they need is the pollen for the high protein to feed the baby bees, and the nectar, which gives them the carbohydrates they need for their energy, producing, to fly, to heat the hive, to take care of the baby bees. And that bee, by the way, the USDA study that I was doing, we took the pollen off of that bee, we weighed the bee, and then we weighed the pollen. The pollen weighed the same thing as the bee. It flew back with its own weight from 2 miles away. It's like you can't even put somebody your own weight on your shoulders and jump off the ground. Imagine this bee flying 2 miles with its own weight. It's amazing. The aerodynamics of a honeybee. Then they store all the pollen for the winter months. Because starting in January, there's no flowers up here, no nectar. They need to have stored pollen and honey. They need 80 pounds of honey to make it over the winter, and they need 40 pounds of pollen. 14 pounds of pollen. That's what they need. They know that. They know what they need, and they bring it in. And that's why we tell beekeepers, don't be greedy. Leave them the honey, leave them the pollen they need so that they can survive. No beekeepers don't know that, but we teach them very quickly. And most people don't want to lose their bees. They're very good at it. So it's not that majority of losses, it's the 3 factors that I mentioned. We haven't found a way to be able to control these mites and the viruses, and then pesticides on top of that. But there's the playground they need. We call it, that's where they go get their nectar, their pollen, in gardens, and they're pollinating man's crops at the same time. And here they bring back the nectar, sweet nectar, and they put it into the cells, and it comes in a variety of colors. When we get to the table up here, you'll be able to see closer. They put the watery substance into the cells, and all night they fan. They got to get about 75 to 80% of the water out of it, so that there's only 20% water in honey. Under 20% water. The rest of the water's gone. And also in that honey, when they deposit it from the hypopharyngeal glands, these secretive substances, they've named them, but they really haven't discovered what it does to the honey for human beings and others that use it. And then they cap it over for the winter, so they cap it over and they store it there. And in the winter, they come and they start chewing off the cappings and they got honey. Whereas if you don't leave them enough, they starve. There's nothing more. I had a young lady that was up in Middleton, out in the western part of the Berkshires. They were on vacation for 3 weeks. I inspected their hive. They came back, and all of a sudden she called me. I think they got hit with some kind of poison. So I went up there. Well, guess what? Here was July. I opened up bees with their heads all in. She said, what is it? Poisons, pesticides? I said, no, you starved them. I said, look, not a stitch of honey left. Tears started coming down. She said, I'm at fault. I said, you didn't know. I had to quickly give her one of the tears. I saw tears in her eyes and felt bad. But new beekeeper didn't know. But even in July, sometimes you can eat the honey. If it's too dry, the nectar, the plants won't release any nectar. And as a result of that, they can't get any nectar. And so they can starve even in the summer months. Rare, but in the winter months is when they do starve a lot. With new beekeepers in particular. All the beekeepers know how much you need, what to do, feed them. And that's the wax that they produce. They put their babies in there and hatch them. They put the honey in there. They put the pollen. They store them. 6-sided cells. Beeswax. And we use it obviously to make candles, make beautiful ornaments. And this, she's not happy. Look at her. That's Sarah. You know why Sarah's not happy? See her back leg? She had to go collect what we call propolis. That's bee glue. Resins from pine trees, from plants, from different plants, saps that they release, sticky. And for all these years, millions of years, we thought it was just a glue to glue everything up, seal it up for the winter. Marla Spivak at the University of Minnesota found out this is antimicrobial. They coat everything with this propolis. It fights diseases, bacterial diseases, American foul brood, European foul brood, and other diseases. And we never knew that till a few years back. A scientist finally came out. Now everybody leaves the propolis in their hives because they want to make sure that they're not taking away something good. We never knew. I used to scrape it all out. My dad, get rid of it because it was stuck up. You'd need to have like a crowbar to get this stuff out because it was all really solid. But they have to get it out off of her sacks there. They have to take it out and put it into the hive. And the way they set up there, look at how organized they are. In a frame of bees, I'll show you up there. In the middle, they have all the worker brood. That's all the females. You notice how many drones? Down at the bottom of the frame, a small percentage of drones, because they don't want more than 10%. And then at the top, they put their pollen and their honey. So the nurse bees go up, get the pollen, get the honey, chew it up, add enzymes from the hypopharyngeal glands, and feed the baby bees. And the baby bees, all these thousands of years, have been hatching healthy and fine, and still would be, except that those other factors are now at work, affecting the honeybees. And this is what a hive looks like, a man-made hive, not a wild hive. The first 2 boxes, see the big, deeper boxes, that's where they raise their baby bees, that's where they store their pollen, their nectar, and stay down there all winter. Then the upper 3 boxes, that's where they put all the honey, that's the extra. We figured out they have enough room in those bottom 2 for the winter, and we can take everything else. But I tend to leave one of those small boxes as insurance, and many beekeepers now also do. rather than having the bees die and starve, they leave extra honey and sacrifice the honey. And that's the queen. Every year, bees swarm into the wild. That's their way of multiplying. They produce a new queen once a year, about June, May, June. The old queen takes half of the bees and leaves, and I don't know, how many have seen a swarm ever on a tree or on a house? The swarm leaves, finds a new nest, and starts a new colony. And the new queen hatches out, gets fertilized. Now you need those boy bees, fertilizes the queen, and she can now lay females, fertilized eggs. So swarming is a natural process, except it's a waste, because in a while the bees aren't surviving. Man, we've learned to use some things effectively, oxalic acid and formic acid, to kill the mites somewhat, but don't kill the bees. So we're helping them survive. Man is now helping the bees. They're helping us with pollination, but we're helping them to help. But in a while, nobody to take care of them. They're dying. I had 5 bee trees that brought in my yard by tree cutters. I tried half of them with treating with the formic acid. It worked. The others I didn't, they died, because they just can't overcome this mite. That's the biggest issue. And there's the swarm, what it looks like. I could tell you story after story after story over 70-something years of catching swarms and buildings and banks inside a bank. Tell me about a bank, what's the bank that begins with an S? Santander.
Santander.
What?
Santander.
Yeah. They bank, and they open up in the morning to find a big swarm on the front door. I get a call at 6 in the morning. Mr. Watchell, can you come up? I said, who is this? Said the vice president of the bank. I says, what's the problem? There's a big swarm right at the entrance on the door. Our customers are going to be coming in an hour at 9 o'clock. I went up there. That was downtown Worcester. I went up there, and all of a sudden, I said, okay, evaluate the situation, got a ladder, got a hive. They were right over the doorway. I put a yardstick right across from the thing to the hive, and I slowly went through the hive like this. Had to looking for the queen. I got the queen. I put her into the hive like soldiers. They marched right into the hive. Matter of fact, the Gazette covered came down, a reporter took a picture, and so I had the hive over here on the ladder. They're all, but some of the field bees had already been out. So I said, he says, will you be able to take them away? I said, no, I can't, because all the field bees be coming, stinging, trying to sting, or looking for their home and stinging your customer. Oh, well, what do we do? I says, well, she says, could you stay here and kind of direct them? And I said, yeah, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. He goes, well, how much? I said, $2,500. Go for it. Yeah, we'll have you. The whole day I stood there, and it was funny because the way I was going, as the people were coming into the bank, I'd go like this, stop. I'd call the bees in like this. And they're waiting. They're stopped there. And then all of a sudden I go like this. These people right in. I had fun all day. They were serious. They thought, I was directing the bees when to go and when to stop. And that's the yellow jacket, so you don't get it confused. All yellow, one set of wings, yellow and black. Very aggressive. And here's my father with his Polish hives. He insisted all our years, red and white, the Polish colors. And I had to adhere, but now I got all different colored hives. Out of 150 bee hives that I run, they're all different colors. He was my mentor. He was 5th generation. I'm 6th generation. And like I say, my daughter's taken on the 7th generation. And here you can see, this is a summer meeting at my house. We had spaghetti and meatballs, salad, dessert, strawberry shortcake. And I was doing sessions, teaching sessions at my house to all the beekeepers in the area. We thought 100 might show up, well 310 showed up, and my wife and my mother had to quickly run out to the to the store and get triple the amount of food. And all of a sudden, instead of one big pot of spaghetti and meatballs, she went to one of the pizza places and just ordered another whole pot of spaghetti with meatballs and salad they made, got like 6 heads of lettuce, and we had to triple the amount of food. People at the park at the American Legion, everybody, they wanted to see how the bee inspector keeps his bees. So it was one of the exciting times when I said, wow, I didn't know they wanted to see how I keep my bees. And that's by the way, that was I think last year. There I am in the shorts, see me? Oh, wait a minute, that was 1983, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was blonde still. I'm light blonde now, I was dark blonde back then. All right, let's go put on the lights and we're gonna go to the table up here. Why don't people move up a little closer here to be able to see better? Go to the back and you people come to the front, that way I won't have to speak as loudly here. Get the lights here. Right on the other side there. Now, you learned about the bees, a little bit about the hobby of beekeeping. If you want to start beekeeping, you need to get yourself a beehive. This is a miniature. It's 1/10 of the size of an actual beehive. And what it is it has boxes with frames in it that look just like this. And the bees build the wax. They make these 6-sided cells. They use the honey, and they produce out of their glands back here, wax glands, ooze out little flakes of wax, and they chew them up, make them into 6-sided cells. That's where you saw they put the pollen, they put the honey, they put the baby bees, and that's why they need the nectar out there, they need the honey out there, the nectar they make in the honey, and they need the pollen to do all this, to produce the wax. And so this hive will start out with a small number. A queen would probably be about 2 pounds of bees. And by the end of the summer, so when you start, if you're going to start beekeeping, you'd want to start sometime in April. And you get a queen with 3 pounds of bees, shake it into your beehive, and you're off and running. Of course, you'd go through a bee school first, like Worcester County runs a bee school here, virtual, for $50 for 8 weeks. And then we have 2 outdoor sessions, how to become beekeepers. It is a fun hobby, and you go in and work the hive, but you need a little smoker. What a smoker does is calms them down a little bit. It's like California wildfires. Bees over millions of years realize that smoke and fire, and they have to leave to save themselves. So by doing this, you calm them down, they go down and fill themselves with honey, thinking they have to leave. But you only do it a little, just so they get used to you working down there. And once you're in there and you're working the beehive with your hive tool, you can see me in that. If you go to my, like I say, the YouTube and Google my name, you'll see that trailer for National Geographic that they made. You'll see me with no veil working the bees. They're walking on my ears, walking on my hands, they're on my neck, and you know, they are calm. If you start hurting them, then you start killing them, and they're going to attack, they're going to get you. But I can work them, and it's fine. Now, if it's raining, bad weather, you're going in there, they don't want you in there in the bad weather. They're going to sting. That's saying, stay away. Too cold today. If it's cold out, they're clustered. They don't want you bothering them. So you got to know when to go in, but it's like another world. When you go in there, you're so fascinated watching the nurse bees feed the baby larva, and you look at the queen putting an abdomen, laying an egg, coming out, looking up at you like this, and going on to the next cell. It is amazing. And if you're stressed, you go in there. Rebecca Knapp, a psychiatrist at UMass for years, has heard about the stress. She came out with me 2 or 3 days. Oh my God, she says, Ken, psychiatrist, I don't know if you know it, it's the most stressful job there is. And she said, this was so relaxing. I forgot about everything. I was so focused. Now there's like 4 psychiatrists at UMass that are all beekeepers. She's got them, they all work together. They friends, and I started the first state policeman in beekeeping 18, 20 years ago. Now there's 29 state troopers that are beekeepers. It goes in occupations because you're proud to be a beekeeper. They're like Charlie Dance, his name. He was a state trooper, and I knew him. And I got him started with beekeeping. Then he'd have this cookout with all the state troopers, and they'd come on out, see my beehives. He'd have me opening up the hives, and they were amazed. And he'd be right there with me without the veil, and he was nervous, but he stood there. The other state troopers saw that, and so now, 29, 4 psychiatrists. I can go on and on. Jim Blodgett, the district attorney, assistant district attorney, Worcester County, and he's now in with a few others. So it goes back, but it's fascinating beekeeping. And if you've got a spouse that don't want to go to bees, there's the hobby. And by the way, honey comes from different nectars and different plants. You can see it all the way from Russian olive, very light, to dandelion. Over here, this is black locust. You can tell you have to have a lot of one plant, because a lot of them only bloom for 2 or 3 weeks. And if you got like say Russian olive, like I have in 2 of my locations, this is what I get. It's exquisite honey. And then at the other end, buckwheat produces this molasses type honey. And I got 15 different honeys to taste from all around the world for you after. In a few minutes we'll go back there and you'll be able to taste them. So what we do is we take out, you can see the frame of honey right here that we take out of the hive, and close up, you can see they cap it over with wax. And we take this frame and we uncap the cappings on that whole frame and put it into a spinner. And then we spin it out. And the centrifugal force throws the honey out. We jar it, and that's the purest food. From the frame right into the jar, untouched, unprocessed. You got to be careful though. Some of the big companies and things now have processed. They heat it up too much to kill a lot of the nutrients and valuable. You want to always get from a local beekeeper that doesn't have that kind of big equipment. See, these big companies, they have to put it out, and honey crystallizes naturally because you spin it out. It's got all fructose, glucose, and sucrose. And what happens, the different combinations cause some crystallize quicker, some honeys don't, you'll see back there. And so you spin out your honey, and of course, that's a big plus, because people always, new beekeepers, Ken, you think I'll get some honey? I said, that's not, your priority is to keep the bees alive. Yeah, but I'd like, can I take 1 frame? They begged me. Well, I said, yeah, but you're kind of maybe sacrificing your bees. How about, can I just spin some out of half of a frame? I said, yeah, go ahead. And I said, you can always feed them some back if you have to. So here you can see all the different honeys that you can get. Here in New England, is not, except for cranberries, there's not like enough acreage of one crop to get like Russian olive. I got this down Walled Lake State Park down there. There's 1,000 acres of that. So I can go down there, and for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks it's blooming, I take out, just spin out that honey by itself, and you get pure Russian. Or if I on a cranberry box, you get cranberry honey. Back there you'll be able to taste it. And so that, and then with the wax as a hobby, you know, this is, you can see with the bees build their 6-sided frames, and you can just pass it across. And wax, you melt down. We found many uses. This hand cream, our beeswax hand cream, this is one for moisturize. You get dry hands, works wonders. Moisturizing beeswax hand cream, and this is if you get cuts. Civil War, they covered wounds with honey because it's antibacterial. Don't have a bacteria. So hand cream, lip balm, soap. This is my favorite one right here. My wife makes these. This is my favorite. She makes a whole batch of these. It lasts me about 2 or 3 months. But this is, you can smell these after, try some of the hand cream after. And then my daughters would make, for Christmas time, candles. We'd mold them. And then they'd paint them all up with the flowers, the stems, and give them to all their friends. Candle, and they smell beautiful when they burn. Beeswax is pure, and you're having a nice dinner. Oh, nothing better than smelling beeswax candle burning. And of course, so beeswax you can do, you know, make candles or dye them if you want for Christmas red, but it's still beeswax. And of course, foods. Making, for instance, raspberry instead of raspberry jelly, raspberry honey jelly. Right here's strawberry honey jelly. Oh, honey adds a little extra nice touch to berries that sometimes a little sour or whatever. Right here, same thing. This is another variety. This is another type of raspberry. Apple honey butter instead of apple butter, apple honey butter. And here's a friend of mine, even tried something new. Mead. Mead is honey, alcohol, honey. It's a honey wine. Well, he made this jelly and puts it on his toast in the morning. He said, Ken, try this. And when I was teaching, he said, try this. He says, it gives you an extra kick in the morning. I said, I teach in the morning. I can't go in with an extra kick. And so I tried it now, and since it's wonderful. But now we have, you know, by the way, you have a book. You know, this was my father and I, 200 years of, you know, beekeeping in the family with all the generations. 200 years of beekeeping in our family. So the book they ordered, my dad and I on the front cover, they put out a lot of my mother's, my grandmother's recipes are in here. But you also have now, the big push is honey mead. This is honey and peaches fermented. It's honey peach mead. Oh. Then, this is a barrel-aged mead, they call it. It's a nice sweet mead. It's no fruit, just a sweet mead. This is a dry mead. This is pomegranate mead, honey mead. And they're trying, and of course the latest fad is honey bear. If you go to Rushford's, down in Upton, Rushford's, my honey, they make their bee's knees beer with using my honey. Three of the brewing places buy my honey to make their beer and mead. So you can have, we just had a couple over, and then if you want to really experience, this gets a little expensive. Gracie's down in Providence. It's probably, in New England, it's probably the second or third most nicest restaurants. It's expensive, but you can see they put out the whole, from beginning, and I do like a 45-minute talk about honey and food and whatever, and you can see all the different courses, all with honey and with mead, and including the desserts. This is the whole thing you go through. You sit there in nice, beautiful environment, tablecloths, and it's top notch. For 2.5-hour experience, eating experience comes out each course at a time, and of course I give the talk, and they can taste different honeys there at the same time. But it's a great experience. It's expensive, $125 to Gracie's in downtown Providence. They use my honey for cooking. And the other thing is, another late fad is the decorations. You can see here what my daughter does. She sells them and for wedding that they put for the middle of the tables at the weddings. It's got bees, flowers, and skep. This is what bees used to live in, skeps. And you know, now you see all kind of, you know, bee associated decor everywhere, t-shirts, everything, because bees have taken, people realize we got to save the bees. You know, it's a lot of copper maker to produce this, and everybody's getting in the hobby. Little skeps where you can keep your honey, and the little twisty here. So the hobby's expanded, it's growing, but the bees are dying. We can't let that happen. Like I show you, there's nothing more beautiful than watching a bee. You can stand there, watch the bee gather the nectar and the pollen from the plant, and you can see they're working so hard to get back to the hive, to make sure that hive's going to survive. They need our help though more than ever. I tell people, get into beekeeping because you can help the bees. If you see a swarm, don't call a pesticide guy, call a beekeeper. Be happy to grab the swarm. Plants instead of that $10,000 lawn, plant like colonial days, all kind of foraging plants that the bees need. You can look up pollinator plants and plant them along the side edges of your lawn and try to not use those pesticides. Because Dr. Lou at Harvard took a big plot in somebody's beautiful lawn, paid him well to get a square like this deep. When they analyzed it, not a living insect in that whole plot. That pesticides that they use, Grubex uses imidacloprid, which is in one of the neonicotinoids. So, and then stop beekeeping and help the bees out. So those are things you can do to experience, and hopefully, maybe, you know, we can find a way to make things work. And I'll probably be gone, but I'd like my daughters to be able to say to me, Dad, we saved the bees, instead of hearing the bees are gone. So that's my story. Like I said, I've been around all over speaking about bees, and now that I'm retired, I still make 150 beehives that I run, so I'm not retired. To run 150 beehives is a job in itself. You can imagine I was teaching, summers I was inspecting beehives, and then I was running my own 150 beehives and doing 2 studies with Harvard and USDA. So at one time I was really into bees much more. I told the bees, I'm calming down now, stay with me. And you know, I still dream about my bees, but anytime I see people spraying honeybees, I cringe, because up the street I went by. I said, are you going to, I saw them, they were looking up and they had this spray. I said, no. I went back up myself, caught this one. That's all there is to it. They think it, you know, they're ready to attack, but they're not. So with that, let me just, I'll take a question or two, and then I'll show you back there the honey, taste some of the honeys, and there's a stick. They'll taste a different one for each one. There's a wastebasket. And taste, I got the honeys written down where they're from and what kind of honey it is. And on the back is my 2 jars. You'll see my 2 jars, spring honey and fall honey. And then I got, if you want to buy, good deal, $9 a jar, the honey, spring honey. I got the fall honey there, and it's not from product, right from the extractor, right into the jar. That's for about small beekeepers. They're not processed. Because honey, once it's processed over 125, 30 degrees, all the nutrients, all the value of honey is lost. So be careful when you get your honey. Make sure it's, you know, you're getting a Walmart, Costco, some of those big companies. They have to heat it up so much so it won't crystallize, because they don't want to be taking it off the shelves every 2 months, going and coming, shipping it 150, 200 miles away. So once you heat it to over, that's why honey, to decrystallize it, you just put it, the jar, in hot water, and it'll come back to its liquid form. Crystallized, King Tut's honey, 3,000 years old, still good. It's crystallized. it's still good. Doesn't spoil, because it's antibacterial, bacteria don't grow in it. So with that, any questions? Anybody have any questions? That's my presentation, but I'll be back there where you can answer some questions on the honey tasting and enjoy that anyway, because you'll see from different parts of the world. Any questions? I used to ask my students that, and it's dinner time, just before dinner, like, here, you're going right to the honey, there was no questions. In the morning, there'd be all kind of questions. Just before lunch, no questions, they were looking to get to lunch.
It's very good.
All right, thank you.
Very good.